Bitcoin tops $100,000 for the first time as Donald Trump appoints a new SEC chair. Rising prices, debt and unemployment dominate Ghana's crucial vote this weekend, and we explore the ripple effects of China's recent export bans on vital raw materials. Hello, I'm Taiba Aydin with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. Bitcoin has surged past the $100,000 mark for the first time, extending a dramatic rally as investors bet on greater political and regulatory support from US President-elect Donald Trump. The price of the world's largest cryptocurrency climbed as much as 6% on Thursday to $103,800. That's more than 50% since Trump's November election victory. On Wednesday, the former president nominated crypto advocate Paul Atkins to run the Securities and Exchange Commission, the main market regulator, raising hopes for a more favorable regulatory climate for the industry. Trump vowed to make the US the Bitcoin superpower of the world and has nominated several crypto enthusiasts to top roles, including Howard Lutnick to run the Commerce Department and Elon Musk to co-head a cost-saving effort dubbed the Department of Government Efficiency. For more on this, I'm joined by Mark Humphrey-Jenner, an Associate Professor of Finance at the University of New South Wales Business School. Welcome back to the programme, Mark. Now, Bitcoin has finally hit that $100,000 milestone. What's been the driving force behind this rally?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me again. And you're quite right that Bitcoin has really been surging on the back of President Trump's election and the anticipation of more favourable policies, or at least fewer unfavorable policies. So former SEC Chair Gary Gensler was not necessarily a crypto enthusiast, nor really a Bitcoin enthusiast, although he did carve out Bitcoin for separate treatment from the rest of the cryptocurrencies, allowing a Bitcoin ETF, but being much more negative on other types of ETFs. Furthermore, much more negative on some of the cryptocurrency platforms, which had been accused of engaging in unlicensed security dealing, for example. Nevertheless, the move from SEC Chair Gary Gensler to the new SEC Chair is going to be good news for cryptocurrency generally. Furthermore, Donald Trump had gone through the motions and made a lot of effort of making himself more palatable to the crypto community. He'd signaled a desire to do so, and he himself had his own crypto project. So we're seeing a lot of positive overtures, although at the moment not necessarily concrete details.
And what kind of a regulatory transformation can we expect to see with the new SEC chair, and how will this benefit the crypto market?
There's certainly going to be several things on the bucket list of moves to do with the new SEC chair, but also the regulation or the regulatory environment in general. So the first one that really leaps to my mind, but this also benefits broader stocks and other securities, is the approach to capital gains tax. Donald Trump in particular has not wanted to increase capital gains tax. By contrast, Kamala Harris and the Democrats wanted to increase capital gains tax. Now, that would clearly be negative for cryptocurrency, much like it would be negative for any other form of security. So that's the first thing that leaps to mind. The second thing is a more friendly environment to some of the crypto exchanges. One of the concerns under the prior administration and under Gary Gensler's leadership is exactly what counts as a security versus a currency versus something else that would be going on an exchange on a cryptocurrency exchange. Now, if, for example, a particular type of cryptocurrency were deemed to be a security versus a commodity, well, that can bring it into a different regulatory environment and a different regulatory regime. So the uncertainty surrounding that meant that some exchanges had inadvertently run afoul of the regulations, i.e. been accused of doing unlicensed dealing, which creates a lot of uncertainty, but also really stymies the industry when there's a lot of uncertainty about exactly how they're classifying some of these cryptocurrencies. And there appear to be distinctions between specific cryptos, whether it's Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrencies. The next thing is energy production. Now, some of the cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, can be energy intensive to produce. So if Donald Trump and the Republicans are aiming toward cheaper energy, that itself can be beneficial, because it enables more liquidity, because it enables, well, easier transactions of these things, given the whole proof of stake and proof of work type environment that will differ between some of these cryptocurrencies, some of which can be a bit energy intensive. So we've got a whole lot of factors that permeate together to make this regulation, this administration, a little bit more crypto friendly.
Okay, Mark Humphrey-Jenner, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your analysis.
Thanks so much for having me. Great being with you.
China has banned the export of 3 critical minerals, gallium, germanium and antimony. Officially, the reason is national security, the same rationale the US used for its restrictions. Panani Shasta has the details.
2024 is shaping up to be the year of trade battles. Around the world, countries are turning inward, raising tariffs, imposing bans, and tightening their borders. The list is growing. Indonesia, Canada, Germany, the EU, the US, and now China. Just days ago, President-elect Donald Trump unveiled plans for a 25% tariff on all Chinese imports. This adds to a growing list of restrictions, like the 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, essentially shutting them out of the US market. But it doesn't stop there. Steel and aluminum imports from China, even those routed through Mexico, are also under fire. And now, Beijing is hitting back. As a direct response to Washington's moves targeting Chinese semiconductor firms, Ministry of Commerce said,
"In principle, the export of the relevant dual-use items gallium, germanium, antimony and super-hard materials to the United States is not permitted."
These minerals are vital, used in semiconductors, solar panels, EV batteries and even infrared technology. Here's the catch. China produces 94% of world's gallium and 83% of germanium. For industries in the US, this is a problem. Even the OECD warns.
Rising trade tensions and further moves toward protectionism might disrupt supply chains, raise consumer prices, and negatively impact growth.
This feels like a déjà vu. Back in 2018, during the US-China trade war, nationalist protectionism became the norm. The US took the lead, imposing heavy tariffs and banning Huawei from using Android. The ban forced Huawei to create Harmony OS, a move that made it China's second most popular mobile operating system. And the trade war? It didn't close the gap. The US ended 2018 with a record $419 billion trade deficit with China. So, will these new tariffs have the same effect? And are we looking at the death of globalization? Panarni Shasta, TRT World.
For more, we're joined by Andy Mok, a Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for China and Globalization. Good to have you with us, Andy. Now, Beijing has hit back at the US's tariff threats on critical raw materials. So what will be the immediate impact of this?
Well, I think the immediate impact may be supply chain disruptions in some product categories. And some of them the U.S. may find very painful. So we've heard that this covers these rare earth metals are used in a wide variety of applications, including some critical defense applications as well. And I've been hearing over the past few months from senior American figures that there is concern, even alarm, at China's ability to inflict significant pain on the United States. And there's a recognition that the China of today is not the China of 20 years ago. So I think that there's this awareness and, again, even anxiety and alarm in the United States about what may happen next.
And how could it affect the US's tech and defense sectors given their reliance on these materials?
Well, I think in the short term, it's certainly possible to see some disruptions, some supply chain disruptions. In the medium to longer term, I think it can cause disruption as companies may have to find new suppliers, new ways of delivering their products, and this may impact investor confidence as well. It's important to point out here with rare earth metals that China, in every stage of the manufacturing process, from pulling ore out of the ground to the final product, it not only has monopoly power but monopsony power as well, meaning that it's not only a dominant supplier, but also a dominant buyer at every stage of the supply chain. So I think this makes it an especially difficult problem for the U.S. to address. The other thing I would say here, too, is, as I mentioned, I think there's recognition from senior American figures that China has a very significant ability to inflict pain on the United States. On the Chinese side, I think there's a sense that China has demonstrated remarkable restraint in the face of escalating American provocations. And again, I think this puts us in a difficult spot vis-a-vis China-U.S. relations. But one thing I do want to point out too is we heard just now that is this the death of globalization? I think it certainly hurts U.S.-China trade, but certainly China's trade relations with other parts of the world are booming and thriving, whether that's in electric vehicles, whether that's in infrastructure like the Chancay port that was just inaugurated in Peru, that is expected to have a dramatic impact on trade between China and Latin America. We can see this in Africa. We can see this in Southeast Asia as well. So I certainly wouldn't call this the death of globalization, but it certainly is a blow to China-U.S. trade and investment relations.
All right, Andy Mark from the Center for China and Globalization, thank you very much for joining us. Now a quick look at some of the other top business stories from around the world. Wall Street's main indices closed at record highs on Wednesday, driven by tech earnings and comments from the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The Dow rose 0.7%, the S&P 500 added 0.6%, and the Nasdaq climbed 1.3%. Salesforce soared 11% to a new all-time high, while Marvell Technology surged 23%, also hitting a new record. Powell noted a strong economy and moderating inflation, boosting market optimism. US services activity slowed in November. The Institute for Supply Management's non-manufacturing index fell to just over 52, down from October's 56, which was the highest since August 2022. Businesses expressed concerns about potential tariffs from President-elect Donald Trump, fearing higher prices. But the Federal Reserve reported modest economic growth and expressed optimism for future demand. The CEO of the largest health insurance company in the US has been fatally shot outside a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Police say Brian Thompson was murdered as he walked to the building where United Healthcare was holding its investor conference. The shooter appeared to be waiting for several minutes, ignoring passers-by before emerging from behind a parked car. The gunman fled the scene following the incident, and a manhunt is underway. And the euro weakened on Thursday after France's government collapsed, sparking political uncertainty. Lawmakers passed a no-confidence vote, raising fears of prolonged instability and a stalled budget plan. The turmoil pushed the euro near a two-year low. The European Central Bank warned of weaker eurozone growth, boosting expectations of a rate cut next week. Ghana stands at a critical crossroads, with its upcoming election shaping up to be a reflection of the country's economic struggles and resilience. Beyond the political drama lies a complex economic story, one that spans rising costs, growing debt, unemployment challenges, and the pivotal role of gold in its economy. Food inflation in Ghana has hit unprecedented levels, with staples like eggs and tomatoes doubling in price in just a year. Wages have failed to keep up, leaving many households struggling to maintain their standard of living. Ghana's debt servicing now consumes over 70% of its revenue, a stark indicator of financial strain. Defaulting on repayments in 2022 led to bailout negotiations with the IMF, further highlighting the severity of the situation. This mounting debt has sparked debates on mismanagement versus external economic pressures. The unemployment rate has surged, with nearly 30% of 15 to 24-year-olds unable to find jobs. This generation, representing the majority of Ghana's population, bears the brunt of an economy that struggles to create opportunities. Their voices could be decisive in the election outcome. As Africa's largest gold producer, Ghana generated more than $5 billion from gold exports last year. While the sector fuels foreign exchange, concerns over illegal mining and environmental damage loom large. With global gold prices soaring, the stakes are high for balancing growth with sustainability. Joining me now for more is Theo Acheampong, an economist and political risk analyst. Good to have you on the programme with us, Theo. Now, how has the rising cost of living shaped the political priorities of Ghana's major parties?
Good to be here. We've had a big generational crisis in Ghana with inflation at over 20-year highs, depreciation of the local currency, and that has had a major impact on the cost of living, especially amongst those that live in the urban and peri-urban areas. If you look at some of the data that's coming through, currently you've got about 30% of the population that live in extreme poverty, and this is actually up about 3 percentage points since 2022, and another 850,000 Ghanaians were actually pushed into poverty due to the rising cost of goods and services. So if you look at the policy priorities of the two main parties, the NDC and the MPP, it's very much focused on addressing these cost of living concerns and rebuilding the broader economy. And some of these include things like scrapping some of the consumer taxes that were introduced a few years ago, the COVID-19 levy, the 10% levy on bettings, the emissions tax, and a few other things. And then beyond that, you also got really how to bring down inflation and improving the stability of the city, whilst the government continues with debt management under the ongoing IMF program.
And how is the rising youth unemployment being addressed?
That's one of the big challenges in this campaign and in the country at large. And both of the two main parties, as well as other parties, are promising to undertake major public works. So, for example, with the NDC manifesto and proposals, they're talking about a $10 billion big infrastructure plan where they would undertake major public-private investments, and that would be able to get a lot of people working, including the youth. There's also incentives for people or the youth to start their own businesses. So these will be things like tax breaks and additional financing to allow them to create their own businesses. And there are other things such as skills training. So one of the parties, I think it's the MPP, is talking about creating 1 million jobs for the youth in digital skills. So in things like artificial intelligence and coding, to allow them to actually participate in the labor force.
And how significant is Ghana's public debt crisis in determining the country's economic future?
Actually quite big, because if you look at most of the commitments that the parties are making, there's actually very little fiscal space to fund them from 2025 and beyond. And also the fact that the country is still under an IMF program. And so a lot of cuts are being made to public services and ensuring value for money, reducing corruption. And the key concern now amongst many investors really and among Ghanaians at large is how the country is actually able to balance having to manage or deal with its debt and the extent to which it is able to then spend on pro-growth policies. But the evidence is actually quite clear that whoever comes into power in January of next year, they will have very, very little fiscal space in terms of spending commitments. So they have to ensure that they're very innovative and also collect additional revenue.
Okay, Theo Acheampong, we will have to leave it there. Great to have your analysis.
Thank you.
Now, the largest e-commerce fair, WorldF, has kicked off in Dubai. It brings together industry leaders, entrepreneurs and innovators from 40 countries. Organised by the Turkish e-commerce experts, the two-day event is all about exploring the future of online retail and the game-changing role of artificial intelligence. Omar Bakkaloglu takes us to the event with this report.
It's busy in Dubai with thousands of visitors here to discuss the latest developments in e-commerce. Artificial intelligence is of course a major focus, with experts sharing how it's reshaping the way businesses operate and connect with customers. Panel discussions are also being held to offer a roadmap to navigate the fast-evolving $8 trillion market. Turkish companies are making their mark as well, with more than 85 brands showcasing their expertise and looking to expand their presence in the Middle East, one of the fastest-growing e-commerce markets. Earlier, I spoke with WorldF Vice Chairman Orhan Isayev, and here's what he had to say.
We have actually 3 stages in our event, and Future Commerce stage, Case Study stage, and Masterclass stage. Also, we placed that topic, one of our main topics, AI and the technology side, future technology on e-commerce. It's growing very fast in all over the world about creating the content, then making their business very automatically, very easy, very smooth, And because of, the manpower or human power, there can be some mistakes during the e-commerce process. But because of AI and the technology, they can reduce their problems during the e-commerce business. Therefore, it's very important for us. And as a topics we already placed in our event, and during 2 days, not only the partners and the companies, but also the consumers can use it and learn about e-commerce and get aware. The shipment, payment, and digital marketing side are the top 3 topics of e-commerce ecosystem. And on shipment side, using AI and future tech on e-commerce, it's getting very automated, process during the e-commerce, and making and helping to companies make this business very easy, well automated, well integrated between all parts of the e-commerce, and therefore it's very important for them to use AI. Dubai and the Gulf region is very important for the e-commerce ecosystem. And from Turkey also, the many companies interesting about this region because, as you know, about the regulation, tax advantage, and especially fulfillment and the logistic shipment companies interesting in this area. And many of companies trying to establish here company and make their business very easy, very smooth through the Dubai.
Brazil's Amazon faces a new challenge. Illegal gold mining is on the rise, and now even indigenous communities are getting involved. But what's behind this crisis? Christina Simic explains.
Deep in the Amazon, the Munduruku tribe faces a tough choice. Gold promises wealth, but mining destroys their lands. Illegal mining has become a lifeline for some indigenous families. They sell gold to pay for food and even school fees. But this comes at a huge cost. Forests are being cut down and rivers are poisoned with mercury.
Some families survive thanks to this illegal mining. They live off these activities and send their children to study at private universities. Then it's difficult for all.
Gold prices are high, fueling a boom in illegal mining. Even tribal members are joining the trade, which is backed by organised crime. They say poverty and a lack of government support leave people with no choice.
Gold is very important. As our needs here are big, we depend on illegal mining.
The Brazilian government is cracking down. Helicopter raids target illegal camps, destroying equipment. But miners often flee before agents arrive. The conflict has even divided families. Economic pressures also make the fight even harder because illegal gold mining makes money and government's raids take it away.
The movement in the city has dwindled due to the anti-illegal mining operation. It is as if all the people were scared of working in mining and losing their goods and money.
Brazil's challenge is clear. The mining is fueling crime, dividing communities and damaging the Amazon. The road to a solution is steep, but it is not impossible. Without action, the cost of inaction will only grow. Christina Simic, TRT World.
Well, that's all your business news for now. I'll be back in the news hour with the latest. The Newsmakers is up next.